Are you missing out on the hidden gems of Pokemon card investing? Let's talk about something I like to call the mid-era theory. What's up, guys? My name is Riley, aka Pokemon Trader. I've been buying, collecting, investing in Pokemon since 2014. Enough about that. Let's talk about something that I like to call the mid-era theory. And this is a way of looking at eras of cards and even multiple blocks. The mid-era theory is essentially that everyone else is looking at what's really old. Think vintage WotC sets, really rare cards, really rare sets like Team Up, which really isn't that old, right? But it is very rare. And then, of course, you get much older than that, like Jungle base set. People are aware of the rarity of those sets and they're aware of the cost of those sets. And so people are really looking at that. And then they're also really looking at whatever is hyper modern, the newest set, Destined Rivals, Prismatic Evolutions, even 151. People are hyper aware of those two things, what's really old and what's really new. And oftentimes what's in the middle, aka the mid-era theory, gets left out and forgotten about. And that's where a lot of potential investing gains can be made. My goal with this is to help you understand the mid-era theory so you can use it in your investing to increase profit. 5 years ago, 2019, 2020, the mid-era were sets that came out like Black and White or even Evolutions at the time was relatively cheap compared to what it is now, because it was just old enough to not be new anymore, but it wasn't old enough to be considered vintage or hyper rare. So it would just get left out. People stopped thinking about it, they stopped talking about it, and that's where you want to strike. That's where you want to invest your money because you have the highest potential gains, because you can be sure in Pokemon, at some point, people will start looking at those sets. People will start looking at those cards and desiring them. And the time to invest in those cards is before everybody is already looking at them. If you see the price chart starting to go up, starting to spike, you're probably already too late. The mid-era theory doesn't have to span 10, 15, 20 years. It can. You can look at it in multiple Pokemon era blocks if you want, like I said, with Evolutions or Black and White, the sets that were just kind of in that middle era that people didn't really care about. But you can look at it on a shorter term as well, thinking within a specific block. You can look in the Scarlet and Violet era alone and see which sets fulfill that mid-era theory package. And some examples of that might be Journey Together, possibly Twilight Masquerade, Obsidian Flame, some of those sets. Now, it's a little hard in the current market because everything has ballooned in price, but you can still find them. Journey Together being at the forefront of my mind, and I'm starting to see rumblings of it on Reddit and in Discord. People are beginning to kind of talk about it like, hey, there might be a missed opportunity here. Why does this happen? Well, for one, of course, when you're talking about old vintage WotC sets and even newer now, like Team Up, there's a lot of nostalgia to that. People remember opening it and they want to buy it again. It's a holy grail for them. It's a grail item that they just want to pick up. And now, like me, they're in their 30s and you have some money, so you want to invest it in something that you loved as a kid. So nostalgia is a huge driver for those old cards. And for the newer sets, it's just summed up in the hype FOMO flip doggers out there. And those mid-era sets, whether it's within Scarlet and Violet block or spanning 10 to 15 years, get forgotten about, and people don't care right now. That's about all there is to the mid-era theory. Just basically looking where other people are not looking, sets that aren't the oldest, most rare sets, and whatever's not the absolute newest hype product of the day. Look somewhere in the middle. That's where there is a massive opportunity, and you want to be there before everybody else is. And so I like to end all my videos with the lasting advice as well as the now advice. The lasting advice is obviously something that can last beyond just this current market cycle. So what is the lasting advice here is simply just to look where other people are not looking. Be willing to buy products that other people aren't hyping right now. And it's kind of scary when you do that because you're going, well, everybody's talking about this set and nobody's talking about this set. Maybe this set is just bad, which can happen sometimes, right? You get some sets that really are just worse. but not all the time. Sometimes good sets are just overlooked based on what is surrounding them. Think Fusion Strike. It was a solid set, a cool pink box, very different than a lot of the other ones, but it was surrounded by, Brilliant Stars, Chilling Reign, Evo Skies, and the 25th Pokemon Celebrations. And so that set just got overlooked, but only for a couple years. And the now advice would be, what can you do with this mid-era theory advice right now? Right now, look at the sets that people aren't looking at. And the number one that comes to my mind is Journey Together. And specifically, I'd say Journey Together Enhanced Booster Boxes, and especially Journey Together Enhanced Booster Box cases if you can get them. Because again, you got to think, what are people not looking at? Well, Journey Together. And what will they not be able to get? Again, what will they not be able to print? Or what will Pokemon Company just choose not to print again? Well, we don't know if they aren't going to print the enhanced booster box cases again, but it's quite possible, right? There are already two versions of it, the enhanced and non-enhanced, and currently the non-enhanced is rarer, at least in the United States. So it's possible that they just print that one. And then, of course, it being in a case where even if demand wanes over the next 1 to 2 years, which it inevitably will, cases will still be incredibly hard to come by. Right now, you can still scoop them up on Facebook Marketplace. You can get them on TCG Player, eBay, whatever, for good prices. But as time goes on, they're not going to have cases anymore because Pokemon Center, Target, Best Buy, wherever it is, whatever online LGS you ordered from that used to send you cases like they did me, are no longer doing that. It's a max limit of 1, maybe 2, and that's going to last beyond when demand begins to wane, right? Because there's a lag effect with how these companies respond to the market, just as there's a lag effect when the Pokemon Company can start overprinting. It takes about anywhere from 6 to 10 months for them to react to the market, which makes sense, right? They're talking about overprinting now, but in November of 2024 with Surging Sparks is when we first really started noticing a massive bull market coming. And they are just now starting to reprint things like Surging Sparks, Prismatic, and probably Destined Rivals at some point. So that's about it. Invest in Journey Together Enhanced Booster Box cases.